subjective and objective. And then you write a vision statement. And these are some examples of a vision statement, some more complex than others. Bella wants to be independent and happy. Everyone wants to be independent and happy. Janie wants to be independent and happy. And here's another one. After graduating from high school, Pilar wants to enroll in a 6-month training course for computer repair at the Acme Computer Technical Institute. Just as an aside, DCF is now allowing students after they transition from high school to receive what they call a ETV, which is a educational training voucher of up to $5,000 a year to take such training. And another one, Wendell plans to work in an automotive repair shop as a mechanic after graduating from high school. That also would be eligible for an ETV, educational training voucher. These are all good visions. I think Bella needs to flesh hers out a little bit, but it's a start. And vision examples. We've done these with fill in the blank type of things, and I think they're great. So, Terry, did you actually put these vision examples in, because I think they're wonderful. It gets people to think about, yeah. So, following high school, student name, I'll say Janie Kreco, intends to pursue a bachelor's degree at a 4-year college. Or Janie Kreco plans to work at the Federation for Children with Special Needs after graduating from high school. I like the third one because it says I in it. After exiting high school, I plan to live with my friend and use public transportation to get to my job, the supermarket, and the gym. Examples of a goal to support a vision. Now, these are not IEP goals, and work with me here, Terry, because I know that the goals in the transition, on the transition planning form, have to be rewritten as IEP goals. So I think that the goals that we have examples of here are actually kind of semi-goals that need to be rewritten into the IEP. Is that true?
Well, you have to be clear what goal you're talking about. This does get confusing.
Yeah.
In the Massachusetts IEP, when you're talking about the vision, as you did a minute ago on that first page of the IEP, the student's vision in the Massachusetts IEP becomes the post-secondary goal. So as you talk about those goals, we're talking about the vision or the goals that are going to happen after high school, when the student exits high school. When it comes to writing an annual goal, it's different than a post-secondary goal. It's more specific, and we're speaking specifically to what the student is going to do in high school to support that post-secondary goal. And from that annual goal comes services and supports in order to reach that post-secondary goal. So the goal does become a little bit confusing, but I think as you walk through it this way, you get a sense of how important the vision is. It's important because it is the post-secondary goal, which in IDEA and in Massachusetts special ed law, every student has to have a post-secondary goal in their IEP. And from that post-secondary goal, which is the vision, comes everything else.
Thank you. Okay, now that makes sense to me. Okay. So these goals that we're talking about here would be the post-secondary goals. Yes, post-secondary goals that can then be looked at as annual goals to get to this place. So, and we've broken them down into education, work, living, transportation, and community involvement, which are areas that we should all be looking at when we create the vision and the goals, post-secondary goals. So the education piece is, and it's all Scott now. Scott will audit a class in photography at the local community college. He will complete an internship with a local photographer. He will continue to add documentation into the database at work. He will live in his own apartment with a roommate. He will take public transportation until he's able to afford his own car. And he will continue to work out at the gym and attend services and activities at his church. So this kind of takes a holistic view of the child and is a really nice fleshed out vision stated in goals. So I kind of like that a lot. So what's the action plan here? And this is based on the transition planning form, I believe, right, Terry? So the action plan is 3 steps. What are the first steps? Who does what? And what will success look like? And again, you want to remember those big 3, the education, the employment, and the adult living and community involvement. We will go into the writing of the goals and the writing of the IEP goals in the next webinar on transition in June. But for now, what you want to remember is that IDEA requires that any post-secondary goal be appropriate and be measurable, be annually updated based upon age-appropriate transition assessment. That's a big one there. We'll talk about that also in a later webinar. And express the student's future intentions in each area, the big 3 again, education, training, employment, and independent living and community involvement. Some supports and barriers. There's always a support and a barrier to everything, the ups and the downs. Think ahead to prevent problems. And again, for kids in the child welfare system, there will be some barriers. One of them, of course, at 18, they will be their own guardians and don't have the parental involvement that a typical kid would have. So you have to consider the supports, the barriers, and the future needs. And one of the future needs for kids with trauma is that they are going to, and certainly kids in the child welfare system, is that they will need support from adults that are understanding. First what you want to do is share your vision. Share your vision with your student. Give a voice to your student's vision. Inspire others. Create new partnerships. This can be done at a team meeting or it can be done in the community as a goal. Very important because they're not going to have the typical parental involvement that a typical student would have. Again, this is for the SESPs out there that are listening. There has been some research done on how to help traumatized children find balance and to get them to change the foreshortened look at the future. It's just in its infancy about what the interventions are. Some of these are very therapeutic, but it's a start. They need to start practicing mindfulness. Now that's very hard to put on an IEP, but one-on-one, it's possible. Identify and engage in more positive activities. That's without a doubt a very important thing, and we talk about that in the orientation to make sure that there are positive outcomes and positive activities included in IEP goals. Pay attention to the choices they make, and I think that goes for the students themselves and for the people that they are dealing with so that they can know whether the choices they make are appropriate or inappropriate. Connect with others. I think the research is finding more and more that one of the main ways to help kids with trauma to overcome a lot of their neurological disabilities is to connect, to make connections with other people, peers, adults, people that are out there that can help. Reduce avoidance. Reducing avoidance means that they have to stop running away from the things that they may feel are negative, and they have to slowly and surely, with a trusted companion, start to look at the things that they're most afraid of. And they have to take care of themselves even though they don't think they have a future. So, dare to dream kind of brings it all around. And these are some of the quotes that we have found that are inspiring. perhaps for your student, for yourself. Don't let yourself be limited by what others think you can do. I like the Walt Disney one, if you can dream it, you can do it. And alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. It's all about team building. Don't let the services that are presently available limit your dreams. Sounds like I might have been a parent said that. So, any questions for us? No? Anybody out there that has any kind of questions? I think that we've got about a half hour left. Yes, we do. Or anything you want to add to this discussion, Terry?
So we have a question, someone that says, I have a child with a complex history, severe learning disabilities, anxiety, depression, trauma. She's socially very on target and verbally advanced. How do we document IEP concerns to emphasize how much the supportive therapeutic environment helps to make this success happen? Our town is stating that she doesn't need this specific school and they want her to go to a public collaborative that provides less trained and qualified staff.
You? Did everybody hear that question? I'm not sure they did.
I think they should be able to hear me now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a question here about a child who has a complex history, severe learning disabilities, anxiety, depression, and trauma. But socially, she's on target and she's verbally advanced and gifted that way. She's hoping to go to an arts college and is now in a therapeutic school that she enjoys. She's been stable. So the question is, how would you document IEP concerns to emphasize how much the supportive environment is helping make her success happen if the town wants to send her somewhere else?
Well, one of the things that you as a parent or an advocate might do is to start a discussion with her about her vision of the future. I don't know how old the student is, but kind of get a sense of whether or not she does have a sense of a foreshortened future. It's really surprising when you start to ask these kids what they want to be when they grow up. I mean, it sounds silly, but in more concrete terms, you know, do they see themselves in what kind of a profession? The expressive therapies of art are wonderful because that goes beyond, or you don't have to talk about it. You can express it in a different way. Mm-hmm. But what they're finding is that cognitive behavioral therapy for trauma, which is the only really good intervention, clinical intervention at this time for kids with trauma, is based on talking and telling their story. And so I hope that student is receiving that kind of service. Trauma-sensitive schooling involves a lot of support and a lot of nurturing. And hopefully the schools are now becoming aware of that. So if the school has not been introduced to trauma sensitivity and trauma-informed IEP planning, the parent might want to make sure that she is educated in that subject also. And I always say, bring out the purple book, which is written by the Massachusetts Advocates for Children, and it's called Helping Traumatized Children Learn. And it is all about relationships in a safe and supported environment. Terry, did you have anything to add?
I just wanted to mention that
assessment is always critically important, that as you're looking for any change in an IEP, or if you're looking for things as a parent that will support what you're saying, you're going to need some other clinical information, support, or documentation from some type of an assessment that you want to bring to the top of the conversation. So I think I would suggest that you look through any assessments that exist currently. Remember that students need access to school. It's full access to the school experience, the school community, the life of the school. So if this is a young person who is interested in art, and is she involved with any extracurricular programs at school? Are there any non-academic or any arts programming that she is participating in. One would think that someone who is that interested in this type of study would be involved in those experiences in school, whole school initiatives that already exist. And if she's not, I would question why. And this is where she could make some great friends that might be interested in the same types of things. And if those things aren't happening for her, the question goes back to why is she unable to do that? Because if she's unable to participate in the community of school, then she's going to struggle in her social experiences in her community where she determined she's going to live after school. So you want to try to link what her skills and abilities are, what her interests are, what currently exists, and how she's participating in that.
I have a two-part question here. About assessments specifically, will that be described later in the presentation in part 2? And then further, how can creating a vision before assessments help them be more meaningful?
Okay, so you want to make a vision prior, a vision is not necessarily based on assessments. It also has to be based on what the students themselves would like to accomplish. They may be very good in a certain area that they particularly hate, and they're never going to be successful at that. I was supposed to be very good at engineering, but I could not even imagine becoming an engineer. So, and this was based on an assessment that they used to give us when we were in high school. I don't think they do that anymore. But it's so, you have to base it on what your specific preferences are. And then based on those preferences, you can do specific kinds of assessments. And yes, assessments will be part of the ongoing webinars that we have planned for the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Carrie? I was going to mention that, the whole purpose of transition in general is to link those two things, what you like and what you're good at. And as Janie said, if you're doing something that you're really good at, you just don't like to do it, you're not going to be successful, and vice versa. So this whole period of time, we want really some experiential learning and observation. So the individual themselves, we can see whether or not they're engaged and interested. Professionals around them can see whether or not they come back, whether or not they talk about those activities. So beginning to understand what engages the student, what excites the student, is very important observational information, not only from the school but from the family. What does someone do in their free time? What do they seem to gravitate to? As you begin to talk more and more about these different things, then you can use those assessments looking at strengths and connect them with those preferences and interests. And that's really the whole point of this, is finding something that you're pretty good at and that you like to do. And that's all transition is all about. And so walking this journey, the earlier you can start, the better off you are, so you can walk this journey and find out new experiences and try new things. But I can't emphasize enough how important whole school initiatives are to students' real meaningful experience and connecting to their school. And if that's not happening, we should be talking about why and what other type of environment would afford them that type of experience.
That's great. I have one. What advice would you give to an SESP advocating for children who are significantly impaired cognitively, who cannot make decisions with transition, especially if they're wards at the state?
This is Terry. I would really like to suggest a transition portfolio. I think that a transition portfolio is a great way to begin finding out what a person is interested in without them even verbally telling you, by simply showing you what they like to do, what do they do with their free time. Give them a cell phone with a camera or a camera and have them, show them how to use it and have them walk around and take pictures of things that interest them. Take pictures of people who interest them, activities that interest them, and all of a sudden you see this collage of things that reflect them without them telling you. A lot of times people will tell you things, but then if you ask the mom or dad or sister and brother, they say, well, she's never or he's never really interested in that, or he doesn't become engaged. but when I see him talking about this or that, so talk to other people about the student, what they do, when, as I said, when they seem engaged and involved, and start to follow those pathways to see if within those pathways there's some experiences that may be interesting. Students, for example, who really enjoy being on stage or being involved in the theater. You know, how many times have you talked to or heard an actor or an actress say, "Oh, I'm terrible at a party, but put me on a stage and I just become a different person."
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, this could be the same thing for a student in school who's never had the opportunity to be involved in something at school. So I think that a transition portfolio can really begin to help that vision along the way for someone who really can express what they like to do or what they're interested in.
Terry, I have a question. This is Janie. Who would be in charge of a transition portfolio, especially for a student who does not have a family, does not have a parent?
Well, it's really more anecdotal. I mean, obviously in school, a teacher could help a student with that. You know, get a 3-ring binder and some plastic sleeves at Staples, and begin to collect some things about the student with the student. You could start with magazines. You could print things off the computer. You could, as I said, take that cell phone into the community with the student, maybe with the person that's supporting that student, and begin to gather those things together. There's so many different ways you can begin to use Instagram as not Instagram. Is it Instagram or is it that other Pinterest?
Mm-hmm.
I think is a great example of a portfolio. It really is.
So it could be online. They could have a portfolio online.
You know, maybe on Pinterest you could start that type of thing.
Yep.
And help the student with some of that technology that may be interesting to them, because all of a sudden, again, it's reflecting things that they're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Great idea.
We have a question. When you're creating your vision, how many of the goals should be carried out in the home environment versus the school environment, and how do those become integrated into an IEP?
When they say home environment, I'm going to think about maybe ADLs, activities of daily living, and independent community stuff. And so I believe the question is, if I'm following it right, is can they bring goals from other domains other than school into the IEP
I think so.
planning? And Terry, can you answer that for us?
Well, I think the best place to look at that is on the transition planning form when you look at the action plan, because the action plan right at the top in the informational paragraph above the action plan says you're supposed to be writing in there what's going to happen and who's going to help the student with it. So some of those things would be done at school. Some of those things might be done by the parent, but it's certainly not all done by the school or all done by the parent. So we should be looking at the action plan as a whole and then teasing out who's going to be able to do what. And as you said previously, for many students, they don't have much involvement from at home, which is very challenging for any student. So as you fill out that action plan, be aware that we need to put things in here that really make sense. And I think making sure that there's a discussion on who's going to help the student follow through on these is critically important. Just like on the IEP, when you look at the service delivery grid, if you talk about it happening, it should be there somewhere on the service delivery grid. So making sure that you understand that transition planning form and that you're moving from the form to the IEP, and that when you do that action plan on the IEP, the purpose of it is that rich conversation, talking about everything that the student wants to happen or needs to happen, and suggestions from that rich team of people who care about the student to come out with some action plans for everyone to take a piece of.
I like the idea of a service grid on the transition planning form.
Well, it does say it. It does say it right on there. You know, if you're going to do this, who's going to help the students facilitate this? And I think it's a great idea to look at that action plan in bullets. What's going to happen? who's going to help the student. Might be family, might be parent and student, might be brother and student, might be teacher. It could be it might be a job coach. But as you work on that action plan, and you can start it at home before you get to the meeting. Start thinking about what you might want to see on that and who you see delivering that.
Thank you. And you know what? I think next time we will actually see more in depth about what the action plan looks like and that kind of thing. Okay.
Yep.
Someone wants to know a little bit more about Terry's role at the Federation. They've been through the SESP training, and I guess.
Oh, do a little plug for your 2-day training, Terry.
Yeah. Well, I do just about everything transition here at the Federation. That's my responsibility, and I love it, actually. I do training. I do a 2-day training called a transition conference called Planning a Life. It's 2 full days. It's a Friday and Saturday. We run it 3 or 4 times a year. The next one will be in November, the first Friday and Saturday in November, in Worcester at Seven Hills. I believe the other 2 will probably be here at the Federation, possibly in January and March, and we'll put those dates online. I also do professional development for school districts, and I work with DDS and MRC agencies doing transition workshops again, so that agency personnel can understand how the process works, the students before they come to them, and how they can better relate to students as they're in the transition age students. So I do a variety of different transition things. I also provide technical assistance and information to parents who call here and are looking for help with an IEP, with with type assessment, all kinds of different issues. So anything transition.
We're glad you're here, Terry.
Great, yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This might go hand in hand with that, but we have an SESP here whose student uses devices. So she wants to know, how would she get information about the student to the right people? Do we offer training for that sort of thing, or where would you point her?
When she says devices, I'm thinking she means assistive technology.
I think that's what she means.
So it's some kind of computer stuff. So she has to be a little bit more specific about that. But I think, and when she wants to get the information.
Yes, primarily in communication.
Communication. Okay, Terry's got her finger up. Please.
So what you could consider is working with a team, and you'll see that on the service delivery grid on the IEP, it specifically talks about training. So there's training for teachers. There's also training for parents, families. So that might be a place where you could key in, you are the SESP, you are the advocate for the student and the team, that you want to be trained on this particular device. I'm assuming it's some sort of communication device, and that's really important. You can also, on the additional information page on the IEP, it would be nice to mention that there, that at this particular meeting you requested some consultation to better understand the student's communication device. It would just be another place where you could have it documented on the IEP. But having it on that service delivery grid is very, very important for what it is you're looking for.
Okay, this one's more specific, but how would one apply for an ETV?
Okay, an ETV comes through the Department of Children and Families. And what you should do is talk to your student social worker, because there's all kinds of transition services that are available through DCF right now. A lot of them are rolling out in July. I'm going to post on our website as soon as I have it the advisories as they come out. But an ETV comes through what they call an adolescent worker, who has to be assigned to your student as they age out of DCF. So the place to go is to talk with your social worker, and if your social worker is not aware of it yet, that they should ask their supervisor. Okay.
I think we've come to the end of our submitted questions.
Okay. Well, thanks. I would like to thank everybody for attending. Our next webinar is on Tuesday, June 25th, right? Right, Carrie? Is that the day we decided? We don't have our calendar. So. Okay. Okay. So, and that will be presented by Terry, who is actually much more, has a lot more information on transitions than I do. I will be adding my little take on the DCF stuff as it comes out, and hopefully by June 25th we'll have more information about it. We also will be sending out a survey monthly in the next couple of days for you to let us get your feedback on the webinar. And until next webinar, thank you, and we will talk with you all soon.